A big question that a lot of you guys were asking me on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube is, of course, did George Lucas ever have any original plans of a dark side version of Luke Skywalker? This is Mike Zero. If you guys are new to the channel, do make sure to subscribe to see future Star Wars content. Now, the answer to that is yes, George Lucas actually did have actual ideas and plans for Luke Skywalker to turn to the dark side and fully embrace it just as much as Vader did, as well as Darth Sidious. Now, looking at everything here when it comes to the Star Wars universe, we saw elements of this at the very ending of Return of the Jedi. And that brings us to this movie primarily. Now, yes, in the Dark Empire comics, which by the way is Legends and EU material, we do witness the dark side version of Luke Skywalker. But what about when it came to the actual movies? Speaking of which, for Return of the Jedi. Now, George Lucas, I don't know if you guys knew about this, not a lot of people know about this, but it's a very interesting fact, is that George Lucas originally wanted Luke Skywalker to turn to the dark side at the very end of Return of the Jedi, and actually become Darth Vader. So this is where things get very interesting. Now, George Lucas originally wanted Luke Skywalker to become Darth Vader at the very end of Return of the Jedi. His very last lines were going to be, "Now I am Vader. Now I will go and kill the rebel fleet and will rule the universe." Now, Luke actually does take off his mask, alright? He takes his mask off, and Lucas told this to co-writer Lawrence Kasdan. The mask is the very last thing. And then Luke puts it on and says, "Now I am Vader." The ultimate twist. Now I will go and kill the rebel fleet and will rule the universe. Now Kasdan, who actually was a very close person to George Lucas, he has worked with him many times before in the past, and he said, "That's what I think should happen." But George Lucas backed down from the idea, insisting that the film is for kids. So I want to go over a couple of elements here on what I disagree with and what I actually would have loved to see if they really wanted to go down that route of making Luke Skywalker, turn to the dark side. Now, number one, the only thing that did not make sense about this whole entire idea by George Lucas is how, well, Luke Skywalker would wear the Darth Vader helmet and claim himself to be Darth Vader. Now, that to me doesn't make so much sense, because the helmet, there's really no need for Luke Skywalker to wear it, and him calling himself Darth Vader wouldn't also make sense at all. So, they could actually have done something where after Luke Skywalker chops off his father's hand, as we see in the actual finalized version of the movie, he then goes on to kill Vader, and then that's when Emperor Palpatine steps in and actually turns him to the dark side and gives him either the same exact title as Darth Vader, without the helmet though, or just calls him Darth something something in order to make Luke fully embrace the dark side of the Force. Now, I don't know about you guys, but it's a very interesting idea that George had that he ultimately turned down, mainly because these movies were for kids in his mind at the time. So doing that, actually having him embrace the dark side of the Force is something that he actually wanted to do. We also know that Mark Hamill, I don't know if you guys ever watched, Dinner, I forgot the name of the show, it was Dinner for Something, but it's a round table of different actors and directors and writers, and Mark Hamill actually pitched in for a second, and he talked about how he really suggested to George that he wanted to do a dark side version of Luke Skywalker, at some point in time in the future if they ever made sequels, and that's where a lot of the theories started rolling in before Episode 7 dropped on whether or not Luke was going to be an actual dark side user, which, by the way, there were various concept art and storyboards of that for Luke being actually embedded within the dark side of the Force in Episode 7. Now, that did not make it to the final cut of the movie, of course, but looking at everything here, when it comes to Luke, my favorite dark side version of Luke is in Dark Empire. I don't know if you guys ever read those comics or listen to the audiobooks, but the main reason as to why he turns to the dark side is, well, he's trying to really kind of just get the idea, understand how his father, Anakin Skywalker, turned to the dark side. Why did he turn? And exactly how does the dark side work? That's what Luke Skywalker got so curious about that he started actually shifting over to the dark side in order to gain knowledge about it, just to understand it. And then eventually he finds himself getting swallowed by the dark side, as Leia says in the comics. You know, the dark side is swallowing him whole. I love that line. But then, you know, he gets under the hand of the Emperor himself, Emperor Palpatine, a clone of him. And that whole concept in the Dark Empire comic, I just love it. You know, if they were to ever do something like that, maybe not about Luke, but certain parallels to that in a future film, where they could actually have, like, cloning and a light side user who you would never think would turn to the dark and then turns to the dark, they could totally do that with different characters and just parallel the, you know, the Dark Empire comics. That's what I would love to see. But anyways, guys, I would love to hear your opinion about George Lucas and his ideas of a dark side Luke, you know, putting the helmet on, claiming himself to be Vader, that he would now kill the rebels and rule the universe. You know, it is a little cheesy to me when he puts the helmet on, but him actually claiming to be Darth Vader could make sense as a generational thing from father to son. That I can see. But anyways, guys, drop a comment below. Let me know what you think about all of this in the comments. And if you guys did enjoy the content for today, do make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel. I thank you all so very much for the kind support, and I'll catch you guys next time.